she's so cute.
Awesome. We are live. Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. Hi, Mary, Florida.
I know, I love it. Hi, Maribethy. Hi, Angela. Angela beat us to it. She's way up there.
She is so ready.
Oh
Hi.
my goodness.
Awesome. All right. So today we are going to be talking about why do we judge ourselves and others for lyrical lessons for life.
One of my favorite topics really is judging and shame and victimizing. Yes, it's just one of my favorite topics.
Yes, and I'm excited to do this. So I've been wanting to write this song and finish it, and then I've been judging myself for not finishing it. And today I was so happy today. I woke up, I got a good night's sleep. I didn't finish it yesterday. I just wasn't there. And then so this morning I felt great. And so then I was jumping into this song, and then while I was trying to get my head into this song to capture the judgment of things, what happened was the song turned on me and those emotions did. So I called Joe, and I was frustrated because half of my brain was very aware of what was going on, and half of it then picked up the judgment that I was writing about in the song. It was the weirdest thing. And as a songwriter, you have to jump into emotions in order to play certain songs. I mean, for me, that's how it works. I can't play any song without really feeling the song. So, to my own detriment, I wrote this. Part of it was written a while ago, and then part of it was written today. About half of it was written today. So, and I kind of jumped into this judgmental mode. So anyway, the song is called Listen and Learn, and it's still in the works, and I am going to share it with you guys right now. So here we go. Awesome. Okay. I think everything's on. Yeah. Teeth and tell me that I'm wrong. Judge all my opinions, put me in a box. Well, I understand uncertainty is real, and now I'm wondering if you are full of fear. I need you to listen. I need you to listen. Come on, take a breath before you swing. Let go of that old routine where you're holding on to anything that makes you feel secure. I need you to listen. Come on and listen and learn. I've been here before and traveled on my own, taking all the wrong turns to the same old road. And I understand uncertainty is real, but now I'm wondering if you are full of fear. I need you to listen. I need you to listen. Come on and take a breath before you swing. Let go of that old routine where you're holding on to anything that makes you feel secure. I need you to listen.
Yay. That was great. Okay, so how does that feel?
It feels good to play something that isn't finished. It feels, I have a lot of work to do on it. And I'm excited about our conversation today because it will inevitably, like most of my songs, are adjusted and changed by what we talk about. So, what I want to read a few of the lyrics. Awesome. Hi, Jody. Hi, Angela. So the lyrics go: dig your teeth in, tell me that I'm wrong, judge all my opinions, put me in a box. And then it says, I understand uncertainty is real, and I'm wondering if you are full of fear. Because I think that in the first parts of being or feeling like you're being judged, like you start to feel like someone's putting you in a box, and then you realize this isn't on you, this is theirs that they're holding. And through the song, when I first started writing it, it was really about someone else judging, right? And then as I was writing it and then we talked some, I was judging myself because I had to step into the judgment mode in order to write songs about judgment. It sounds like convoluted, but
It's not though. No, it doesn't. I mean, it makes, you had mentioned this once before, that you need to take on the emotions in order to really feel into the song and create what you're trying to create. And the one thing that I'm going to point out for everybody, Kelsey, is where the rubber hit the road for you this morning was when you had to step back into this place of judgment to get into the lyrics and the mode of the song, when essentially you've been working at stepping away from that place, really consciously working at stepping away from judging yourself, and even hearing judgment from others for a good, solid half a year, few months, a long time.
Yeah.
So stepping back in is a little bit of a mind fuck. And
Thank you for saying that, because that's totally
well,
what it was this morning. I was like, I woke up, I was so happy. I got a lot of sleep. I wasn't judging myself for not finishing it yesterday. And then when I really let myself dive into the lyrics, I was like, Joe, I'm not in a good place today.
Oh. And we talked a little about it's okay to not be okay. So when we stop the judging and give ourselves some grace, it's okay to not be okay. When you're moving through something that used to be so familiar and you'd run around every day, judge, and all of a sudden you get conscious to it and you have awareness and you're like, that doesn't serve me anymore. And then you get whipped back into it. Of course it's going to act like that for you. Or like, of course it's going to be like, what's happening? I'm not okay anymore. And that's okay. And you produced already an amazing song. So what you've given us already, you say you have a lot of work to do. I hear that and think, okay, I think you should just finish it because it sounds pretty damn good already, but.
Yeah, I appreciate you said that. And I appreciate you recognize that, because I think, and it'll be within the topic today as we talk about judgment, because I think that as we, and I recognize it even today, right? Because something about with judgment is something I've been really working on, pulling away from other people's judgment because it's not mine to hold anyway, and then not having judgment for others. And then this morning to have something that has been coming up as I work through things in my life. I find that when I say the words uncertainty is real, and when we feel uncertain about things, we actually can feel less, for me personally, I feel less stable as I'm working through something than I do when I have the old routine of how I look at things.
Right.
So hold on to the old routine. It feels better than when you're stepping through that zone of turbulence that we've talked about.
Yes. Anything that makes you feel secure is what you said. And I wrote that lyric down because it's so the subconscious and the ego is where that judgment comes from, because those judgments are built on old beliefs. Mm-hmm. And that is security to us. Even when it doesn't serve us, it does feel secure because it's what we know. So that lyric is like, that is spot on. And to let go of an old routine and anything that makes you feel secure, there's a ton of uncertainty in that, stepping out. Of course there is. Doesn't mean you
Yes.
don't do it.
And the craziest thing for me was that for today was to consciously step into a place that I've been working away from. And then like within 10 minutes feeling that whoa, like that shift, and then recognizing it in all the times when I've worked through things that are difficult in my life, there's this zone of turbulence. And so then to feel that to an extreme today of knowing how I currently think and then how I'm trying to think to write about judgment. And so yeah, I hope that resonates with some people as we work through things. That idea that it feels uncomfortable before it feels more comfortable. I did that this morning, jumping into stuff. So
absolutely. Angela cracks me up. Wiggle on out of those judgy pants, fold them up and put them in the drawer.
I love that.
Yes. And security or comfort, they're not the same thing. I think that oftentimes in my experience, there is a false sense of security that comes from staying inside of other people's belief systems. It's a false sense of security. I go back always, and we'll always go back to, if it doesn't serve you, if it doesn't feel right, you will know. You'll know. But there is a false sense of security that can come from staying inside of that because it's what you've always known. And the comfortable or not, if it doesn't feel comfortable, it's because it's not meant for you. That's what I think. And from my experience, if it's uncomfortable, then it's probably got some really great stuff on the other side of it.
Yeah. There's a lot with comfort that we should do an episode about that.
I think so too.
Because I think that's the hardest thing to discern when you start feeling uncomfortable about things. Is it because you're working through something and going to get to this other side, or is it because we've talked about this a lot, or are you approaching something that you really shouldn't be? It's not a hurdle you should be going through.
Exactly. And that's when, then we tend to judge ourselves, right? Like, oh my gosh, I'm not comfortable here. I'm going to judge myself. What's wrong with me? Why can't I finish this? Why can't I do this?
Why didn't I? Or yes. And
all those expectations we try to meet in that place.
And why do we? I guess that's the title of today is why do we? And for me, I think that for me, when I judge myself, it speaks to it speaks to these agreements I have with myself from like my childhood of things that I've worked really hard to like break, and of just how I viewed myself, and maybe not having enough self-love and self-worthiness. And so for me, when I judge myself, it's self-sabotaging. However, there's a part of me that feels more secure when it finishes the narrative that I used to tell myself. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Absolutely. It makes sense. I think that, we can be a certain way and it serves us in those times. And that's the narrative. That's the thing we've always lived inside of until the point comes when it doesn't serve us anymore. Until the point comes when something has shifted and it doesn't resonate anymore. And that when you start to change the narrative and when you start to move through that, there can be a lot of judgment. I remember moving through my own stuff and realizing that the world that I'd created was not around what served me, but it was around what served everybody else. And I remember very specifically stepping out and doing things that I'd always wanted to do, like get my nose pierced and get tattoos that represent my journey And all of a sudden I had these judgy eyes, and I wasn't judging myself anymore. I took away the narrative that said, no, you can't have that. No, that doesn't look good. But I had a friend tell me, Joe, you're going through a midlife crisis. Time to stop it. And I'm like, no, I'm really not. And there's the judgment. It's an old narrative. What society believes, what someone else believes, it didn't serve me anymore. So when you start to step through that stuff, though, it can be really challenging. It's just an example.
No, I love that. I love that. It's important to take the judgment from others and understand that that's not yours, that you have to hold. They're like, hey, here's a really heavy rock. And you're like, no, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
Jody just said, so true. 10 years ago, I released a family relationship that was so judgmental. I've surrounded myself with people that love me as I am. No judgment. New kind of family. So freeing. Absolutely, Jody. Absolutely. I've really worked hard over the last year to surround myself with people that love me just as I am. And I feel really grateful that you almost have to love yourself enough in order to allow the people who are judging you to leave. Because if you don't love yourself enough, you're going to hold on to that judgment they're throwing at you.
Wait, pause. Say that again.
In order to let go of the judgmental people, you have to love yourself enough to allow them to go.
Yes.
Otherwise, you continue to accept that judgment from them because you don't love yourself enough.
Right. Yeah, you step away, and there is so much opportunity when you step away for growth on both sides, for the other person and for you. And it's one of the hardest things to do, is to love yourself enough that you can step away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know Mercury is in retrograde, and you're frozen right now for me. So I'm not sure if I'm frozen too.
It might be internet so that it's stable. Oh.
Yeah, I see you.
Uh-oh.
I hear you, sort of.
Stop my video. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Angela, yes. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. Angela said, I feel better when I do better. I do better when I feel better. Where do we build in the pause and stop the need for better? That's huge. The pause and stop the need for better. And this goes back to sinking into the growth that we have, and to celebrate how we've come through that. And, do we always need to strive for something more? The answer is no. You have every opportunity to sit inside of what the place that you've come to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I really like that. And then she says, don't go changing to try and please me. So yeah, she's feeling some Billy Joel. I actually had to sing it to remember the line. So thanks. And you're back and you look good.
Awesome. Good. Yep. Yes. Jody goes, seriously, I'm too old to bend to anyone else's expectations. I love that.
Isn't it true? Yeah. It's so, the moment that you catch that you are living to other people's expectations is a really pivotal moment, because it's that moment where you can have the awareness to how you're meeting or not meeting those expectations, and then how you judge yourself inside of that. So if somebody's put expectations on you and then you don't meet them, you're going to judge yourself, and then you're going to shame yourself. And it's this vicious cycle. Are you raising your hand?
It resonates so much with me. Yeah, this past year has been a really transformative year for me. I worry a little that that'll always be the case for me for the rest of my life now, but I'm excited about it for the uncertainty. But I think that yeah, this whole idea about judging, even when I catch myself doing it, it takes a minute for me I really need to pause and stop. And for me, when we talk about like why do we judge, like I can't even think about that yet. When I'm judging myself, and then it's likely I've judged others around me, because if I'm judging myself, it's really easy to push that on others. I have to stop and at least stop myself from judging, give myself grace, and then only then can I ask myself, why did I judge myself? Because the first step is awareness, and then the second step is asking, like, to give myself grace. And only then, when I step into something a little more peaceful, can I actually understand why I do it in the
That's
first place.
right. That's right. You really, that's exactly right. Because when you're in the heat of the moment is not the time to look at it and go, where are you coming from? You wait until you're out of it to go back and examine where it's coming from and to connect the dots back. And I always tell my clients and my friends and people that we get into these conversations, where's the judgment coming from? Whose is it? Can you point it back to something that reminds you of something from your childhood? Or it's likely not yours. You're carrying it around from someone else's belief system, expectation, and you don't have to. You don't have
Yes.
to. Yep.
I really like that. I like that. Once are able to stop, ask yourself where it's coming from, it can not even be yours.
Right.
Right?
Right. You're still breaking up a little. I don't, is it me?
It's likely me.
Okay.
If
Um,
if I stop my video, that might be better. Can you hear me okay?
it does improve. It does improve. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to call my internet provider. Okay.
Yes. Oh, it's so
We'll
fun.
keep here for a little while, and then I'll jump back on.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll just, pretend I'm looking at you.
There you go.
Because
There you
it's
go.
okay to just keep having the conversation. I think Angela brings in, I feel like awareness to judgment at any point of it is progress. And that's right. It is progress. Angela, you know that. That's exactly right. And most people have a hard time gauging awareness. And awareness is, and being curious is really the first step in anything to self-improvement. Um, because when you're aware of something, then you have a choice of how you're going to be inside of it, change it, whatever it might be. So that awareness is really, really important. Finding out where the judgment's coming from is also really key so that you can see it when it's happening and then you can stop it in the moment. Kelsey and I were, when we were talking this morning, now I feel like you're not here. So when we were
I'm totally here. I just turned all my other things off, so maybe this internet will be okay now.
good. But when we were talking earlier, now I don't remember what I was going to say. It'll come back to me. I don't remember what I was going to say. It was something about when we were talking earlier.
Talking some about this idea of like just societal pressures of this is where a lot of the judgment comes from. I know for me this is my new thing that I'm working on is really asking myself the judgments that I have of myself and others, are they mine? Do I really feel this way? And not that judgment is necessarily good, but it also helps you understand. It helps you understand what's influencing you. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of glad I've had certain judgments and certain opinions, and then I have to like think about them. Wait,
Yeah.
is this mine? This
Yeah.
judgment I have about myself? Like
Right.
recognizing I have a judgment, and then where did it come from?
Right. Right. And you brought something up earlier, actually, that made me think of the compassion that it takes to have, compassion for someone else who either is judging you or the judgment creeps in. Because if we can have compassion for each other, if we can get each other's world, we can drop the judgment. There's no place for it. Because if I can understand that, the person that I'm sitting next to and having a conversation with, and they say something negative about the person across the room, I can look at them with some sort of compassionate eyes to think that at some point in time, they were influenced to think it's okay to talk about the person across the room. And, it's not their fault. But once they have the awareness, it's their responsibility to let it go. And I've gotten to a point with judgment. I don't feel like I don't feel like I judge anything. I just love everybody as they are, whether they're in my world directly or not. I see things, I get it. And it's actually made me feel a lot lighter. Like once I stopped being around all that judgment, I just started to feel so much lighter. And I started to see the world from a completely different place with more compassion. And, it can be really hard not to judge yourself when you're trying to do things and get things done. But I even have compassion for myself in those moments.
Yes.
Big word.
Yes. I had to practice that today and I didn't do that great at it, but it's okay. We're a new moment right now.
Right. New moment, fresh moment, right? As Isabel says.
And it is, I like that you just said that once we release judgment, and I do think that there's some people that you do have to release from your life if they're not able to. You can still have compassion for them, right? But they don't need to be in your circle.
Yeah,
they're going
to
introduce a lot of judgment that you just you don't want to carry that. We talked about this idea of like carrying a big rock. And that when someone has judgment and they're like, here is a large boulder that I now bequeath to you to carry. And you're like, oh, no, thanks.
Yes.
No, thank you. It's easier said than done. But when you just start saying no, thank you to a whole lot of judgment rocks people want you to carry, you walk around a lot lighter.
You do. Oh, yeah. I like that because you're dropping all the rocks behind you. So it does go back to the feeling lighter.
Yes, which is what you were talking about. And then when you put down your own judgment rock, you're like, wow, this is great. I could run 10 miles. Not really, but if I was chased by a bear, I could.
It's funny you say that because this morning, when you'd actually put yourself back in that place of judging that you hadn't recorded the song yet, and you weren't done, and you were feeling it all, right? The uncertainty of where do people have expectations and the fear and all of that. What came to me was, but you're not being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. Right. You're not being chased. And this is what our brains do to us. They put us in this place of an immediate response or a stress reaction, a stress response. And it takes us down this path. And it can be really easy to gravitate to that old narrative that you talked about before. Really easy, because that's subconscious and that's the ego. And those are the limiting beliefs. But when you stay conscious, you can just let it go.
Where does the judging come from? Where does it? Why do we judge ourselves and others? It's because of old narratives. It really is. And for me, that's the only way I can make sense of it, right? Because it's a way for me to feel more secure when I'm feeling insecure. If I judge someone else, it makes me fulfill some old narrative that I'm probably working on. When I let go, the more I let go, the less then I judge, and the less I judge myself, right? But it's not typically from a good place. Would you agree with that?
I very much agree with that. And here's why. There's a quote from Mother Teresa that, and I love Mother Teresa. I've got a few quotes of hers. dangling in various places in my home, but one of them is, if you judge people, you have no time to love them. So if you judge yourself, you have no time to love yourself. Right?
I love that.
So if you sit there and, you're ruminating in the past and why didn't I, why haven't I, that's all judgment. Those are all judgment thoughts. You're not loving on yourself. You're punishing yourself, and judgment is punishment.
Right.
That's where the shame comes from.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even though we're fairly intelligent people, right? I would say that it still comes up for me, and
Yeah.
I don't want to use the word afraid, but I am a little concerned that this is something that I'll just have to keep like chipping away at for most of my life, because I think, well, personally, like, so for me, most of my life has been a certain way, and now I'm trying to kind of reprogram some things. And I think that's kind of the point of being a human, is to continually grow, right, and can continually do that. But it doesn't stop. I think there'll always be something that pops up, and I'm like, oh shoot, I better look at this now. Whoops, this came up for me.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, and the story continually changes, right?
That's
New,
true.
and I love the whole idea of new moment, fresh moment. I mean, Isabel Tierney's given us so many great little tidbits and quotes, but you know, every moment has the opportunity to be different than the last. So once we're able to drop that whole idea of judging how we did things in the past, or what we aren't able to get done, I mean, we can have a new moment, fresh. We can stay in the present moment, and we can experience it completely differently. That's the choice we're given.
Right. And so is I guess this would then be more of like muscle memory, right? Like the more that you quickly discern when you have judgment, and then quickly decide that, oh, I'm going to live here in the present, and we're not gonna be acting from that heavy rock place. The more you practice that, then the easier it just becomes, right?
Yes, it does. It is repetition for sure. And this is why having the awareness and being curious is so important, because when you're able to identify what it, like, oh my gosh, that's a judgment. Even the tiny little thought about something in front of you, someone, it's something that they did, that's judgment. Catch it, and then you can shift it. And that takes repetition and practice. And I laugh because it can be a huge pain in the ass to have to continually practice this. But if you are really looking for a mindset shift away from judgment of yourself and others, you have to catch it. It's
Yes.
practice.
Just lots of practice.
It is. It is. Um, yeah. And it's not easy. It's not easy because then, people will say things, people will disappoint us. And sometimes we can look at disappointment like coming from the expectations we had of those people, but they will disappoint us. And then you have to think, well, why? And then judgment can come in again. I mean, it can be really subtle.
I love that. Angela just said exactly. Being able to say to ourselves, "Wait, we don't think this way." That comment actually goes through my brain a lot, where I'm like, "Wait, nope, I'm not thinking this way. We've decided this already," but it still pops up, and then I have to make sure I don't judge myself for still going through the process, because it comes up. If whatever you practiced, and this makes sense. I mean, if I practice with like a certain way to do a song, for me to now just perform it differently on a whim will take more practice. It's not something that then just, once I know I'm going to change this or whatever, I do need to
Yes.
practice it. Otherwise, it won't become habit. It needs to just become habit.
Yes. And that's why you talked earlier about surround, and Jody did. And I know Mary Beth has been feeling that. Angela's been, and we've all been feeling it. Inga, I know you're still out there. Where you find your people
Right.
that you can step into a different place with. And one of the toughest things in life is to let go of the relationships that don't serve you anymore,
Oh,
because it's hard, it's uncomfortable. And we always worry, are we going to be judged? Or, what are they thinking? And when you get to the point of not worrying about that, then the their opportunity to judge you goes away. Your opportunity to be lost inside of that goes away. And, things just can shift. So finding the people that you can surround yourself with that take you down this path that you're working on and want to be on is really, really important. And I love, Angela had said, no, thank you. Very powerful to drop rocks, leaving a trail for others to follow. Yeah. Mhm.
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this idea of being really careful about who you surround yourself with. What's interesting to me is probably the most powerful thing that's happened to me personally has been some of the people I'm really close with have also been growing in very similar ways to me. And if this isn't true for everyone I'm around. So discerning who, like, deciding who is growing with you and who isn't. And then as you're changing, you need to change expectations, or really you need to drop all expectations. But it's important to make sure that you are open to those around you possibly growing with you, but recognizing when some are not. And especially, I think judgment is a really easy way. Like when you were talking about some of your friends saying, like, about your tattoos that you were getting, or like, and the words they were saying were very limiting, very limited mindset, instead of asking you why, right?
Right.
So when you listen to what people around you are saying, especially if you're listening and it's all judgment, it's a good signal that maybe right now it's not vibing,
Yeah.
it's not working.
Yeah. Yes. And it can be really tough. Um, Only because we feel obligated to stay with the people that have been in our lives for our whole lives.
You just said a word that I have been very, very aware of this word obligation.
Mhm.
And I almost think it comes from a way of judging ourselves when we start to use this word obligation, right? I feel obligated to do whatever. And it's like, where is this judgment coming from? It's a judgment on ourselves. At least I view obligation as such. Now, there's some things we just have to, like,
Right.
we set the expectation if you're a mom or something, and you set the expectation that you're going to care for someone in this certain way,
Right.
right? Like, okay, cool, like Rhodey, my cat, expects me to feed her. I am obligated to feed her because I have asked her to be my cat, right? So that's different than like an emotional obligation, where if you start to feel that it could be coming from a judgment of yourself you'll have if you don't fulfill a certain thing, and that's where we have to kind of pay attention, right?
Right. Right. And that all of that stems from fear of what happens when we walk away, fear of what happens when we make a new choice, fear of the outcome of the uncertainty behind it, fear, right? That's where all of that comes from. And, I mean, we could keep peeling back the layers of how these things are intertwined with each other. But certainly when you're able to step away, and when you're able to put yourself first, knowing that that's what serves you and your higher good, that is self-love. And if you can't self-love, then you aren't really going to be able to give the same kind of love to others. It can't sustain, it's not sustainable. And it can be, it has been, and it has been for all these generations before us. But then it leaves us in this place of trying to rip apart it all and start over, right?
Right.
So that's, it's such a beautiful layering of how we get to that point of
And
self-love
of
without.
self-love, and if you're judging yourself or others, and you can catch yourself doing it, that's when you know, like the Mother Teresa quote that you said. Can you say that Mother Teresa quote again?
I can. Yeah, I have it written down. Let me grab it quick because I don't like to get it wrong. But it's if you judge people, and then I always say to myself, you have no time to love them.
Yes. So it's one of those where, yeah, if you find that you are judging yourself or others, it's you aren't saying yes to yourself and others. You aren't giving yourself or others love.
Right.
And when we turn it into that, right? It's easier, I think, for our brains to go, "Oh, but I want to love myself," right? Whereas sometimes I think if I say I don't want to judge myself, part of me will go, yeah, but that's going to push you, right? Or something like that. But if we replace it with that idea of if you're judging, you aren't loving,
Right.
then it makes it a little easier to go, oh yeah, then I don't want to do that because
Right.
I definitely want to love myself because then I can love others more. I can be more of myself. I can be all that I'm meant to be and I want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something we haven't brought up too that kind of, I mean, we can become a victim in our own world when we sit in a place of judgment. And, the victim and the judge, they have this little relationship with each other that the victim loves to cower to the judge and the judge loves to hammer down on the victim. And so they have this thing that goes back and forth. And then all of a sudden, the shame sets in. And so when you can move out of that and just, look at everything with love and from, as we talk about, from the witness standpoint, that can dissipate. The victim state can go away because there's really nothing to be judging. The judge can go away because the victim's stepping away.
Yeah.
And then we can just be full on love. As I was thinking about this idea of judgment, I came across a quote, me and my quotes. But it's everything we judge in others is something within ourselves we don't want to face. And
Yeah.
because it's often when we're judging others, we're judging ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're judging ourselves, it's coming from somewhere else. So we go back to those layers and it's such a beautiful experience to step out of it. It's such a beautiful experience to step out of it and go, wait a second, that's not mine. That's not me. And, without shaming the fact that my mom said things to me that made me feel one way or another, I can look at her and her experience with compassion and say, okay, I get where that may have come from. There was lots of false protection, lots of things she did for me, to me, that then created this judgment in my own mind. That's not mine. That was hers in her experience. I've carried it forward because that's what we do. But now I can look back with compassion and realize that she was just trying to protect me. She was only doing the best she could. She thought things were as they should have been. And it's not mine to carry. So,
Not my rock to carry. Yeah.
not my rock to carry.
Not my rock to carry.
Exactly.
I love this. Well, I'm totally inspired to finish this song and make some tweaks. So thank you. Thank you for this. And I love this. Inga just said another awesome quote from Mother Teresa: let no one ever come to you without leaving better. What a huge thing to strive for and a beautiful thing.
I love that.
And I think you can only step into that if you have enough self-love, and you can only have self-love if you aren't judging yourself.
Right. And then the compassion. I know it's like chicken before the egg.
Well, and it's funny when you say that, chicken before the egg. I find that in myself. Sometimes I have to look at the chicken and sometimes I have to look at the egg. It depends on if the judge is coming or if the victim is there. And then it doesn't matter which one I drop. If I drop the judgment or if I drop the victim or the shame that I feel from judging myself, either one, I can drop either one and it'll dissipate.
Yes.
So, which is kind of an exciting thing because especially if you're judging yourself, you have control over both. And so,
oh my gosh, it totally is, especially when you consider the idea of, don't judge me for, knowing me now. Like, you can't walk into my life and then judge me when you haven't had all the experience before. But, like coming in, kind of coming in cold. That's where the be curious thing comes from, right? Like, ask the questions, be curious. Yeah. Oh, you're wearing it today. I think maybe I knew that. Subliminal, and then there it is. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Oh, and there's all kinds of, Mary Beth says another good one. And then are you typing more?
Maybe Mary is typing another one.
And then or is she, yeah.
I absolutely love this.
I do too. Today feels like a good day for quotes because I don't know, there's just judgment, awareness, fear and uncertainty, clarity. And I love let go of the old routine. I mean, there's so many pieces and layers to how we've become who we are. That the grace that you talked about earlier, the compassion that we need to have to move through this and get to the other side.
And you talking about love and about how, yes, if you're judging, you weren't loving. And that's true.
Yeah. Oh, so true.
Really is. So I think from this conversation, I really am getting that, judgment in general. I mean, it's sometimes it's from an old narrative of yours, right? That might not even be yours, but it was given to you to carry someone else's rock, and it served you to some extent, and you're deciding it doesn't serve you anymore if you're deciding it's judgment that you don't want to have, right? And a lot of it comes from past. The title is, why do we judge ourselves and others? And a lot of it sounds like it's coming from old narratives. Is that, I think that's kind of what
old narratives that aren't even ours.
That aren't even ours.
I actually really love sounding like a broken record some days because it's super consistent in the way that I show up. But yeah, it's old narratives that aren't ours. It's digging into why we believe what we believe. And if it still serves you and it feels really good, that's awesome. Hang on to it. And if it doesn't, let it go. Let it go. Rewrite that story right inside without the fear. And, actually that kind of rolls into what Mary Beth just said, which is another quote by Mother Teresa. We fear the future because we're wasting the today. Like, get inside of the present moment.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
I wonder if go ahead.
Put the gravel down and nobody gets hurt. I love that. Put the rocks down. But I also like what you just said, Joe, in that if certain things feel comfortable and fine for you to hold on to, this isn't a conversation where we're like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to stop and do all these. It's like, no, like you and I talked about this before, where it's interesting, like life will put challenges in front of you that you'll have to face. And when you face them in your life, is just it's somewhat out of your control. I feel like I've been fortunate to where I'm getting hit with them now, and I know some people who are older than me that get hit with them the same thing. And so or there's some things I've been hit with later on in life that I wish I'd gotten earlier, but there's no point to the judgment of why I'm here where I'm at right now. If I just appreciate it and have compassion for it, I'm going to get through any turbulence faster. I'm going to appreciate the process. And I'm not going to be judging myself for not being at a certain spot, or as Angela said on chapter 20, when I'm on chapter 10.
Right.
And I don't even judge myself for being on chapter 20 if someone else is on chapter whatever, know?
Right. Everybody's journey is so individual. Everybody's journey is so different. And, if I were to compare my sister and I, she's 7 years older than I am. And, never once have either one of us judged each other as to when we've learned something along the way. Maybe Mary Beth had a little judgment of when I learned to finally step away from my brother because she was able to do it a lot sooner than I was. Maybe that's one. But it's, everybody's experience is so based on their own soul's journey. Right. And it can be hard. Comparison can creep in. And
Right.
I mean, that's a whole nother discussion around judgment when we compare ourselves to others and, how far they've come and how much they've done. And it's such an icky place to be. But we get there when we get there. And you'll
Yes.
always know when you're ready. Just like Jody said, it was 10 years ago and she finally did it. She knew she was ready then. Me with my brother, that was almost 2 years ago. I knew I was ready then. And you'll just know.
You'll just know. And up until now,
Aha!
right? I love those words from you, Joe. The up until now, this is what it was.
Yes.
And now it's this. And there's a yeah, when you know that you're judging yourself for something and then you decide to stop judging yourself for it,
Mhm.
it's a big release. It's light. It's
Mhm.
just light.
It
And
is.
up until now, you judged yourself for being on chapter 10 when you wanted to be on chapter 20, and now you're not gonna
Right.
judge yourself anymore.
Right.
And it's just a small change that has huge effects.
Mhm.
Right?
Isn't it true? It is. It's one tiny little adjustment to thinking, like up until now.
Up
And
and
that means I don't have to do that ever again the way that I used to do it up until now. It gives you the release
yes.
and the dot, dot, dot. It
Yeah.
puts a period on the end of what was and gives you the dot, dot, dot of what can be.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
This
Well,
was
I'm
great.
glad Mercury kicked back in
I
and
know.
the non-retrograde state of being.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I'm
You
just really,
would you like to talk about release next week?
oh, I think that's such a great idea.
I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's do
Letting
that.
go.
Letting go. Let's do it.
Hmm.
All
Yeah.
right. This was fantastic. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Oh, thanks you guys and the dialogue and
Yes.
loving on us the way that you do and being here.
Being here and yeah, I got a lot of insights for this song to allow it to keep growing.
Well,
So
that'll be fun to come back and share
I
the
would love
rest of
that.
it with all of
Yeah,
us, when
I would love that.
we're able to do that.
Let's do it. It'd be great.
Great.
Awesome.
All
Well, thank
right. Well,
you.
you guys, thank you for being here with us. I think we decided this morning it was episode 15 of Lyrical Lessons for Life.
Yes.
Why do we judge ourselves and others? Oh boy. And yeah, we are here in another week.
Yes.
Same time,
Same
almost the
time.
same place.
11:45. Always the same place. Here in your living room or your car or at work. Thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys.
All right. Have a
Love and
fantastic
light.
day. Bye-bye.